Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to call the regular council meeting for Monday, June 8th to order. Well, first of all, I'll just announce that Councillor Day cannot make it this evening. She's ill. We respectfully acknowledge that the city of Colwood lies within the territories, the traditional territories of the Makwangin-speaking peoples, the Kasepsum and Songhees nations. We'd like to thank them for sharing these lands in peace and friendship. Item 2, approval of the agenda. May I have a mover and seconder to receive the near-term agenda and today's agenda of the regular council meeting be adopted as presented. Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Grove, Councillor Georgeson. Discussion? Okay, all those in favor or any opposed? Seeing none, that's unanimous, motion carried. So just mayor's message. I'd just like to wish everyone a happy new year. I hope everyone had a peaceful and enjoyable holiday break. I look forward to continuing our work this year towards making our community a better place. I'm certainly not an economist, but I do believe we're in for some challenging financial headwinds this year. I encourage us to be mindful of our financial decisions, and we have been, and I think going through the service review process, I just saw everyone just step up to the plate, so I was really pleased with the outcome of that. So we are going to find ourselves in a very delicate balance this year, for sure, assessing the needs of our community with the economic realities of the year. I'm going to move to item 4, the adoption and receipt of the minutes. We have a whole list here. We have a mover and seconder for the adoption or receipt of the minutes as recommended in section 4.1 of the agenda. Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Jensen and Councillor Olson. Any errors or omissions? Seeing none, I'll call the question. Any opposed? Seeing none, motion's carried, unanimous. I'll open it up at this point in time to public participation. I understand we have one person virtually, and I'll certainly open up the podium to anyone in the public that wishes to speak. Okay, seeing none, we'll go to the virtual, please. Thank you very much.
Greetings there, Judah Pamka. If you would like to unmute yourself and address council, thank you.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can.
Hello? Yeah, so my name is Judah. I just joined to kind of understand what happens in the meetings per se. And then also I was hoping to mention to council, I have been here before actually, where we put in a request for the council to approve application for to get a loan from the government for our daycare building. So that's only just say thank you for that as well, and just listening what happens today. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Next person virtually. Is there any others? Oh, is that okay? Thank you. Okay, just again, just ask anyone from the public. Seeing none, I will move on. We have 3 written submissions that were received after the cutoff, and they'll be appended to the agenda tomorrow. Okay. So go to delegations. Item 6, Capital Bikes Program. I understand we have James Coates, who's going to be doing the presentation. Mr. Coates. You have 10 minutes, Mr. Coates.
Press the button. There we go. Thank you very much to Mayor and Council for the opportunity to speak today. I'll try and take less than the 10 minutes, recognizing the agenda tonight. My name is James Coates. I'm the education coordinator for Capital Bike. We're a local charity based over in Victoria, but we run bicycle programming throughout the region. Colwood's been a very long time generous supporter of the work that we do. And while, we'll submit grant reports for the specific programs that we're funded for, I find that between the work that we do and council, there's often a disconnect, and we've recognized that we could do a better job reporting on our programs, the results of things that we've run in the city of Colwood, as well as ideas for future programs to support any active transportation projects that council may have in the future. So Capital Bike is a registered charity. We do advocacy around bike infrastructure, education, which is what I work on, teaching people bike safety to make them safer on the roads, and celebration through our Go by Bike Week program, which I'll talk about briefly. Our mission is to simply get more people biking more places more often through those programs. We have 5 full-time staff supported by part-time staff and cycling instructors who support the work that we do and are overseen by a volunteer board of directors. Most recently, our event was Go by Bike Week, which we run 3 times a year. These are the results for our fall Go by Bike Week. Relevant to Colwood, we had 170 participants in the city of Colwood who logged 1,700 trips by bike, which was a total of 31,000 kilometers. So Go by Bike Week used to be known as Bike to Work Week. It's a behavior change campaign where we challenge people to try cycling for a week for the environmental benefits, the physical health benefits, and we try and promote the behavior change to cycling for commuting. We also ran 1 celebration station in Colwood where the Galloping Goose crosses Souk Road, where I understand there's going to be a new overpass built, which had 76 attendees, as well as staff from the city of Colwood. And as part of Go by Bike Week, we run a sticker challenge where we distribute stickers to different businesses in the hopes of getting people biking in the doors of new businesses. And there were 3 sticker challenge locations in the city of Colwood with 54 visits to those locations. More recently, a program that we've begun running is called The Locker. It's a bike valet service that we run at events. It's exploded in popularity over the last few years. It's meant to deter bike theft by offering secure bike parking both at popular events, and we also have a permanent location in downtown Victoria. We parked 6,700 bikes total in 2023. We were at one event in Colwood, which was the Eats and Beats Festival, where we parked 242 bikes. In the future, we hope to be at more Colwood events so we can help with concerns around, parking, a lot of cars taking up the roadway for pop-up events. We save a lot of space by having more bikes there and also deterring bike theft. Another quick program I like to highlight, we run a series of group rides that are themed. Our most popular one is our Truth and Reconciliation ride on September 30th. We had over 5,000 people participate not 5,000, rather 500 people participate for the last 2 years, where we invite speakers from the Songhees Nation to speak on reconciliation, and we go for a bike ride to the South Island powwow. The program that I oversee directly that we have run the most in Colwood is our program called Everyone Rides, grades 4 and 5. It's an introductory bike course for grade 4 and 5 students. The goal is to offer it as universal cycling for all students in British Columbia. We work with a few different other charities in British Columbia to do this. In Colwood, since we began running the program in 2020, we've run this at Sangster, Colwood, John Stubbs, and David Cameron Elementaries. We hope to go to John Stubbs again this spring because we go to a school every 2 years, so we can get every kid that passes through that elementary school trained. And we've taught 9,200 students since we began this program, just under 600 of them in Colwood. It's a 2-day program. Day 1 is classroom training where we promote helmet fit. We teach a bit about basic bike mechanics, and we talk about how to ride safely on the road in the hopes that the kids that we teach will grow up to be safe bike riders, and we can deal with any traffic problems early and promote a generation of safe bike users. Day 2 is practical, where kids learn things like right of way, how to travel through intersections, how to be courteous to people on multi-use paths, and all sorts of things like that. And then I'll just touch briefly on future initiatives if anyone is interested as part of ongoing active transportation programs in Colwood. This year will be our 30th anniversary of Go by Bike Week, so we're looking to have our biggest Go by Bike Week yet, where we'll have celebration stations all around the region and hopefully at least one in Colwood. We've also run a program of guided tours where municipalities will build new bike infrastructure, separated bike lanes or multi-use pathways. And then this is a way that we ensure that people using those bike infrastructure pieces are using them, respectfully and following the rules of the road by taking those people onto bike infrastructure, showing them how to use it properly, follow the rules of the road, and also promoting use by actually building people's confidence and skills by getting them out onto those pieces of bike infrastructure. That's just something that we've run with the city of Victoria, and we have an upcoming program with Central Sandwich as well as Oak Bay this year. We've had over 200 participants since 2021. And finally, complementing that elementary school program I mentioned, we've begun running programs in middle schools where, unlike elementary school, we'll actually take kids out on the road to promote biking to school, hopefully foster a generation of kids that can bike commuting to school and then to work when they're older. We ran a pilot course in Oak Bay at Monterey Middle School. We have an upcoming program with the city of Victoria at Central Middle School, as well as with Central Sandwich. And if possible, we would love to run one at Dunsmuir Middle School. My thanks to Mayor and Council for the opportunity, and I welcome any questions if you have any. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Great presentation. Open the floor to Council. I think we're fine.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming out, and thank you for everything you're doing for the community. Great. Okay, we'll move on to item 7. A lot of items under the consent agenda. Can I get a motion at any one of these items can be removed at the request of anyone on council? I will open this one up. Councillor Jensen.
Thank you. I was just going to move the entire consent agenda as presented, Your Worship.
Okay, thank you very much. Do I have a seconder? Okay, Councillor Grove. Discussion? Seeing none. Any opposed? Seeing none, it's unanimous. Motion carried. Okay, get on to new business. Our first item, 8.1, is Household Prosperity Survey findings. We have Mr. Jason Alsop of Angus Reid Limited, and I guess you're going to do the introductions, Sandra.
I will. I'm not Jason Alsop. Thank you for this opportunity to present the results of the Household Prosperity Survey. As you know, the Household Prosperity Report was adopted by Council in May 2023, along with the resolution to conduct a survey to ground truth that data by encouraging residents to share their experience and perspectives about the information presented in the report. The online survey was conducted in late November and early December. Survey postcards were distributed to all Colwood residents using Canada Post address mail to ensure they were received by all residents, both homeowners and renters. And our presenter from Angus Reid Group will provide details about the survey and results, but I'd like to note that participation was high, with nearly 500 responses received, and also that a third of respondents, over 150 people, agreed to participate in a follow-up interview to expand upon their responses. This presents an exciting opportunity to delve deeper into the questions that may arise from the data, or areas where we'd like to better understand how different groups experience various aspects of our community. So, for example, various age groups, renters versus homeowners, neighborhood to neighborhood comparisons. So we're pleased to be working with Angus Reid Group, who bring 50 years of experience and industry-leading expertise in market research. And I'd like to introduce Jason Alsop, Senior Vice President and Managing Director of Research West at Angus Reid. Welcome, Jason. Thanks for being here.
A quick question for you, Sandra. Of the 500 responses you get, was that like throughout Colwood, or was it concentrated in one area as far as the responses? Do you do it by postal code?
It's a great question. We're working now to divide the data by postal code and by neighborhood, so that we'll be able to delve deeper into it as we conduct the interviews.
Okay, thanks very much.
Right.
Yeah, 100%.
Right.
Welcome, Jason.
Hey, thanks so much. How you doing? Okay, I'll press this button to move forward. Okay, excellent. Thank you so much for the introduction there, Sandra, and obviously it's wonderful to be here tonight to speak with you all. I think to sort of kick things off tonight, I sort of want to tell you what is tonight actually all about. Well, the first thing is, there's no fields, okay? Why are we here? What do we want to talk about? What do we want to do? And what the hell do you do with it moving forward? Fundamentally, that is what we're all about. It's very easy for me to talk to you about what we found out, but you need to go and do something with that. That's what your residents charge you to do, and that's what we're here to help you find out. So why are we here? Obviously, to Sandra's point, want to understand a little bit more about the household prosperity. What are the perceptions that residents today in Colwood have about the things that are going on out there? This is not telling you how satisfied they are with their garbage collection. Okay, this is really about the perceptions of prosperity within the city. And what are some of the things that the mayor referred to right at the beginning? What are the things that are sort of driving some of those economic challenges right now? And how does that impact me and my pocketbook and what I'm doing today? So how do we do it? To Sandra's point, we sent out a postcard. I think previously we received about 380 completes. This way we got about 500, so we're really thrilled with that. People were given the chance to complete it and enter into an Amazon gift card. And I'm looking at 7 people who all did it. Please raise your hands, tell me you did it. Thank you very much, I like it, good stuff. Okay, so not only did you do it on an online survey, it took about 22 minutes. 22 minutes is really long, okay? In my world, 15 minutes is the cutoff, but this shows it really demonstrates the level of engagement that residents have in the topics at hand. And so given the fact that not only did we get a lot of completes, but the fact that it was 22 minutes, A, demonstrates just exactly what you wanted to find out, but B, what do you do with it? And we were, as I said, really engaged in field late November to early December. And the really important thing is, as we're going through this data here, I want you to think about what are the questions that you might want to reach back out to those people. If there's a little nugget in there, you think, actually, I want to dig a little bit deeper into that. We have about 180 people or so who said, you know what? I'd be more than happy for you to reach back out to me and ask some follow-up questions. So what do we want to learn? Okay, so the first thing is, what are the dimensions of overall well-being and quality of life in Colwood here? And so the first topic of conversation is really around community diversity and quality of life. And so when we ask people, like, what do you most like about living in Colwood? It's the outdoors, it's the nature, it's the ability for me to get out there and walk off those extra pounds over Christmas, through the trails and all of those kinds of things. It's me getting out there and doing what I want to do, being part of nature, which is a wonderful thing. Second of all, it's around the community, that feeling of community and lifestyle. People find their neighbours to be friendly and all those kinds of things. And then one of the smaller other mentions there was really around the low crime rate. So clearly people love living here for what it provides from a nature perspective. There's lots of outdoor playgrounds here, which is a wonderful thing, and people embrace that. When we speak to people, we give them some statements. Hey, what do you actually, we give them these statements, they give us their level of agreement with those particular statements. The fact that we're a friendly community really resonates, plenty of recreational opportunities, and there's definitely a positive energy here for residents of Colwood. So we've got lots of good things in our pocketbook to play around with. We have a wonderful playground. We have tons of recreational. The residents here feel great about living here in terms of the friendly community. So there's lots from a base camp perspective. We have got a lot of things going for us. And how often do they use these things? As you can see here, about 75% of residents visit these trails and nature parks at least on a weekly basis. No wonder there's so much traffic going in and out of the city when you think about all those different trails that are out there. So people are out there, they're getting amongst it, they're making sure they're keeping active and fit, and they're taking advantage of what was put in this region, and they love it. And then when we talk about the community involvement, about 60% are interested in learning more about volunteering. So not only do I want to be out there, I also want to give back. Okay, the ability for me not just to enjoy what you're providing me, but also for me to give back to that community is really, really strong. And in terms of some of the community programs that people are thinking about, it's the Green Team, the Friends of Haverwood, Senior Centre Food Bank. I'm going to try to flow this through as quickly as I can just to keep you guys all on your toes, but there's a lot more information in the report there. One thing that was really interesting to us is we asked people about the perceived diversity in Colwood. And about 61% of Colwood residents said that they see Colwood as very or somewhat diverse. And to be fair, we were very surprised at that. Okay, when I look at the information on the right-hand side of the screen, and I see that at 17% of Colwood are Black, Indigenous, or person of colour, that is really low. And you compare that to, say, Greater Vancouver, it's about 60%, okay, who are a visible minority. So when you think about that, the perception, because I see other people who don't look like me, yes, but it's not as the perception is there, but in reality, it's not where it is. So there's a massive disconnect between how people see the diversity of Colwood versus actually what it is. And that's something we might want to think about addressing at some point in the future. And you can see here that the fact that the vast majority of residents have lived here for at least 2 years, and they've been in Canada for many, many more. So we have a very established community of residents here in Colwood, which is a wonderful thing. Obviously, there's some challenges that go along with that, and I'll certainly talk about that in a second. In terms of some of those quality of life issues, we asked them about some community projects. You know, who's going to say no to having like the idea of a beach trail stretching from Lagoon of Royal Bay? No one's going to say no to that, and no one did. Okay, the cycling paths at Colwood could be better connected with each other. Sure, give me more stuff to do. Make it better for me. I already like it. but also looking to you to make it even better for me now. So there's a lot of things out there from an enthusiastic standpoint about, hey, it's good, just make it a little bit better. How do I do that? What am I looking for? And so residents are very clear about what that could look like. And then in terms of like, what else do you want me to add that it doesn't quite have now? Again, it's infrastructure and public amenities. And we'll talk a little bit about that more in a second. Make it better to get around. It's a challenge. We accept that, but make it better. Public services, the lack of healthcare services, at least the perception of lack of healthcare services here in Colwood is really evident. And the affordable housing or lack thereof is a massive challenge. And that's certainly a topic of conversation, which I'll delve into a little bit more in this presentation as we go along. One of the great things about what we did is we actually gave residents, and I'm hoping, again, the 7 people I'm looking at took the opportunity to provide a bit of a video selfie and provide some input here about what are the things that, you know, could really benefit the economic well-being of residents. And I'm going to press this button and I'm going to hope that it works. And if it doesn't, I will ad-lib for 5 seconds. Go back one. Oh, yeah. Things like I think
additional to this area might be good for some businesses. It would be nice to see some businesses rather than chains. Businesses, particularly available. What is businesses to offset? It can so that would be
So I recognise we don't live in a vacuum. I recognise that the housing challenges are here in Colwood are permeated throughout the entire, actually, certainly throughout BC, likely throughout other parts of the world. So I want you to take that under advisement in some respect. But what residents are really telling us is there are challenges out there. Okay, they want more local businesses. They don't want chains. They want to make sure that when I go to mum and pup store down the road, that it's sustainable. So make it easier for them to be in business and give them some ideas about how to make that happen, as well as a transportation point of the affordable housing. And I'm hoping it's not moving forward. There we go. There we go. Perfect. So what are the key takeaways from that first particular section? We live in a rich recreational area. People absolutely love it for what it provides from a recreational perspective, and it's very welcoming, and there's a massive sense of community here, which is a wonderful thing. Okay, it's great that people feel like friendly and the vibe of the city is wonderful with great recreation, but that doesn't mean that it's all beer and skittles and roses. So the next part of it is really around understanding economic prosperity through financial health, employment, housing, and education. And let's talk about economic prosperity there for a second. Okay, you don't have to, I mean, you can be living under a rock and recognize that it's really challenging out there right now for a lot of people. The mayor mentioned out there being financially, fiscally responsible right now with money, and people are finding it tough. Let's be real. Let's call a spade a shovel. Okay. For half the population, it stayed the same, but there's 2.5 more times people out there today who are more challenged by the environment than what it was this time last year. Okay. Belts are tightening. Money is getting less. everything is more expensive. I'm now having to make decisions about whether I buy A or B. Okay, it's really tough out there. Okay, so we have to also think about that as a council. What does that look like? How do I make more, just going back to the mayor, like read my mind. How do I make more responsible decisions from an economic standpoint here? I'm going to be really fiscally responsible with how I spend money, because people out there are struggling. Okay, the other point here about, can I achieve my financial goals while maintaining a healthy life-work balance in Colwood? And about half the population say, you know what, I can. And that's good. There's a sizable chunk of the population who's saying, actually, it's really tough. And what's driving that challenge? The high cost of living. It's really tough to find a place out there to live, be it whether I want to buy it or rent it or whatever. The affordable housing is challenges. And I just told you, belts are tightening. Money is getting, you know, a little bit more challenging for people. So we have to be a little bit more fiscally understanding of what is going out there in the marketplace. You know, how could we sort of like build up that economic well-being in here? Focus on affordable housing and community development. What does that look like? What kind of options can we put out there? What kind of amenities are required to make that happen? And again, building up that sense, fostering that sense of community. What kind of taxation and financial policies are people looking for? And again, as I'm mentioning this is what people are telling us. Obviously, when you're sitting there thinking about it, what could that look like for you? And what questions would you want to ask the people who said this to go back to them? What did you mean? And you know, how could the council and the city be better at doing this for you? Employment and education. So about half of the population here either work full-time or partly remotely from home, which is a wonderful thing. Okay, and for those people, it's massively improved their work-life balance. Okay, I get to spend more time with my kid, I get to take her to school, I get to take her for walks, yada, yada, yada. It's a wonderful thing. Okay, and who is that benefiting? It's benefiting those people who have a university education. So not everybody gets the benefit of working from home or living remotely. There's only, you know, about 48% of the population who work fully in person all the time. That's a big chunk. Okay, so we have to think about work-life balance for them as well. If I work from home, it's rosy. But if I'm working from the office or I'm working in the service category, it's not as easy for me to have a really good work-life balance. And what are the challenges around that? Transportation is one of them, and we'll talk about that in a second. From an employment perspective, here's a really interesting point. You know, about 61% of the population indicate they're employed, which is on par with the census. It's a little bit higher here than what it is in Greater Vancouver. But the perception out there of job and employment opportunities isn't wonderful. There's a disconnect there about what people think is out there versus what is there in actual reality. Okay, and why is that? Well, they see others out there who may have been laid off or don't have work or whatever. So again, there's this challenge here about how do I create a prosperous environment, and employment plays a key role in that. What can I be doing in that space? The reality of that, or the disconnect, is that most people here who are employed find no challenges in finding employment. Okay, so again, it speaks to the fact that if the perception of residents is that it is challenging to find a work. Maybe they found a job and they don't love it, and they've been looking around and they think, oh, I'm not quite sure what to do next. But we have to think a little bit more about how can we make it easier for businesses, particularly the small businesses that want to be settled here. How do we make it easy for them to bring on more staff, and what can that look like? Housing. This is a fundamental issue, and again, we don't live in a vacuum. It's the same throughout. I'm not sure that the video will work. It's okay. We can. You can. We can move on. You bet.
I think that it's certainly help people that are in base level jobs, try and find ways and means of being able to so whether that's right. And
understand there's limited availability of land for affordable housing development, but houses and things like that. So we can develop and create affordable housing spaces.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Great. Thank you. So housing is a challenge. Not everybody understands the answer of how to get there and how to improve it, but it's a topic of conversation. People are sitting around talking about it. You know, I brought my wife with me on this trip. We talk about housing affordability all the time. We're two professionals and it's tough. So if it's tough for us, it's tough for lots of people out there. Here's the challenge, okay? 87% of the population indicate they own a house, okay? Some have a mortgage, some are paying rent to the bank. Others own it freehold, okay? Very few don't own it. But of those people, the people who are renting, most of those people are saying, hey, I want to buy a house. It is a goal for me. Make it easier. I don't know the answer to that, but it's out there. It's one of the Canadian dreams out there. I want to have my house with my white picket fence. I want to be able to get that place. Is it attainable? Even though 87% of the population indicate they own their house in some way, shape, or form, they don't think it's attainable because it's so expensive to maintain. Okay, I've got interest rates to deal with. I've got strata fees to deal with. I've got maintenance to deal with. Okay, it's a challenge. Okay, what can we be doing to make it more affordable and easier for people out there right now? Again, Colwood doesn't live in a vacuum. Okay, this is a challenge that's out there. I don't have to live in the four walls of Colwood to know there's a problem, but it's something that we need to be thinking about to help residents out. Okay, and even if I'm trying to rent, it's a challenge to find a place to rent. It's limited availability and there's high rental costs. Okay, so housing affordability here in the city of Colwood is something that is on the minds of consumers. And when we asked people about what are the biggest challenges here, it was housing. First, second, and third. It was the biggest challenge that people have here. How do I make my money go that little bit further to make my place that I've got a little bit more affordable? How do I make ends meet? This is really fascinating to me. On the left-hand side, we asked people about that Colwood offers housing options that enable seniors to remain within the community. We've all heard the stories about people getting priced out, property taxes going north, incomes are remaining stagnant, so therefore it's tough for people to pay the property taxes, so on and so on. What you can see here is that only 18% of residents think it's realistic that seniors can remain within the community. That's nothing. You're basically telling them most people out there think it's going to be unaffordable and not realistic for seniors to remain where they've lived the last 20 years. That's a challenge, okay? And you can see here that the seniors who are living that life day to day, they're more likely to agree it than the younger people out there. Like 14% of those who are 18 and 34 say, you know, it's a challenge. So if I'm a senior, yeah, that gives me a little bit of respite. It's okay. But if I ask youth out there, with the affordable housing options are accessible to young adults, it's minimum chips. It's nobody. Nobody thinks it's affordable for the youth here in Colwood. That is a challenge. How do we remedy that? What do we do next? How do I solve that problem? These are the challenges that you 8 fine folk get to solve But here we need to think about this. What does this look like? Because people, both young and old, are telling you it's not affordable. So what are the takeaways from that particular point? Household prosperity is on the way down. Yes, there are many people out there who think that their budget is going just as far as it did last year, and that's great. But there are more and more people who have to tighten their belts. Employment landscape is changing. High demand for remote work, which is a good thing. But what about the people who have to travel and the transportation requirements? And the issue about affordable housing, there's a massive challenge for us moving forward. Again, we're not in a vacuum. We have to think about what that looks like moving forward. And the last section today is really about the environment and transportation. In my last video, which will work. If not, we'll move on. Yeah, that's okay. We'll move on. It's all good for the sake of time. Yeah, that's all good. What are people doing here? Okay, you know, most people are driving outside of Colwood on a daily basis. I know that. I saw the traffic today. It was intense. So thank you for that. It was awesome. Okay, most people are transporting at least weekly. So there's a lot of traffic on the road. Okay, and why do people do it? Because it's the most convenient. But it's a challenge. Okay, improving transportation options in Colwood would impact the overall quality of my life 74%. I hate sitting in traffic. I don't want to do it. Make it easier for me. Improve the infrastructure. That is the message loud and clear from residents here. Okay, the time I spend commuting leaves adequate room for recreation is about half, leaves adequate room for family time about half. I.e., I don't have enough time because I'm sitting in my car going to and from work. Okay, when we ask people the mean amount of time that they spend in their car going to and from is about 35 minutes. That's an hour out of my day that I'm not playing with my kids. It's an hour out of my day that I'm not hanging out with my family. That's an hour of the day that I'm not doing what I want to be doing. There's a lot of people out there who are spending valuable time doing things they don't want to be doing. So let's think about transportation and infrastructure in that space. In terms of some other active transportation things here, the awareness of the Galloping Goose Bridge is really, really high, about 58%. Okay, waterfront pathway at about 46%. Sorry, that's the, 46%. And so there's a lot of awareness around the initiatives that we're building here in the City of Colwood. A great thing. The question about that, is it going to impact me? Yeah, there's a high degree of impact as well. So clearly there's recognition about A, the initiatives that we offer, and B, the impact that it's going to have on my life. Kudos, that's awesome. That's great news. The question here is, what else could we be doing next? And the last thing's around safety levels. And so what we see here, the satisfaction with safety levels in Colwood is pretty solid. We got, you know, how we live with wildlife is, you know, moderate at 64, policing at 63 is pretty solid, traffic safety at 61. So what does that mean? There is room to move here on the communication of the bylaws and cyclist safety. If I'm riding my bike, I don't feel as safe out there as a vulnerable road user as others do. So what could be done here to improve the perception of safety for those folks? I want to come back to something that I referenced earlier, and that was around the absence or the perception of absence with healthcare services. 69% of respondents are dissatisfied with the availability of healthcare services here in Colwood. Okay, they find it very challenging to find someone, there's limited access, and there's long wait times. It's a tough game, I get it. But what can we be doing here to attract? We heard earlier about attracting tourism and businesses. How do we attract healthcare professionals to the town in which we live? Again, let's break this out by both the young and the old. Healthcare providers in Colwood are readily available and accessible to seniors. Nobody, 8%. 8%, that's no one. That's less than 1 in 10 coin flips. Very, very few people think there's accessible healthcare options here for seniors. And when we look at for the young adults, it's exactly the same. So we have a gap here in the need of what people are looking for and what we as a city are delivering. People are looking for more healthcare access. In terms of food security, about 24% about the population are concerned about that. What are some of the ideas for addressing that concern? Home gardening initiatives, reducing food waste and efficient distribution. So there are ideas that are out there. Okay, how do we make that work again? Thinking about, how could I go back to these people and probe them? What exactly do you need? How could I make it easier for you with some ideas? And then in terms of like sustainability, about 42% agree that we strive to exceed sustainability standards as a city. It's not as high as it could be. It's not as low as it could be. So a little bit of room to improve there. Okay. And so what is the top issue or need in the community of Colwood today? What could be done? Transportation. Make it easier for me to get around. Make it easier for me to get into work. Provide me some public services. Make it more affordable for me to live here. Okay. And give me more businesses and more diversity of businesses. Make small businesses. I don't want to support the chains. I want to support the good local people of Colwood and, you know, make it a nice sustainable circle there. Okay. So transportation dynamics play a massive role here. Make it easy for me to get around. And let's address the healthcare challenge. Again, not easy, but something we need to be doing. So how do we move forward? What the hell do we do with all this information? Okay. And I had 5 points here, and that's okay. But what I want you to focus on the top one here is around prioritizing outdoor accessibility. The enthusiasm for this is super high. Okay. But what are people looking for next? How do we go about that? And again, giving people the opportunity to reach back out to those people. We had something there about transportation. Make it easy for me to get around. How do I fight the challenge of housing affordability? And obviously healthcare is something else we wanted to talk about as well. And that is it. Last slide. Good. Is there any questions at all? Hopefully I've kept you awake for the last 20 minutes.
Thanks very much, Al. Thank you for, it was a great presentation.
Thank you.
There's a few new things to me that
What
caught
was
me
new
off
to
guard.
you?
And, but for, you know, for the most part, I think our strategic priorities, we've nailed quite a few of these issues. So it is good, but I'll certainly open up the floor. I'll sum it up here because I have some questions here, but I'll go around the table right now, Council. Councillor Jensen.
Yeah, thank you. Firstly, I'm offended by your icon there for the retiree with the cane.
I apologize. You know, I could throw someone on the bus, but I'll take responsibility for that one.
So I think of great interest. I mean, we talk on one hand about the transportation issues. I think we all recognize that, especially at this table. Anyone that's lived here for a period of time, but I think that graphic that you had about the feedback about how many are hybrid working and working from home. And I believe that if we do this yearly, we'll find that increases year over year over year. So what impact does that have on our issues of transportation for a generation from now or a decade from now? So I find that fascinating.
Yeah, it's a great point you make. I mean, if you were to do this survey pre-COVID, that number would have been 20 points, right? And now it's half the population. So there's so much more traffic on the road than what there was in 2020, but it's so much less than what it was. And maybe it's a function of us being more impatient, you know, or other things out there. But the challenge that we're finding with traffic, and, you know, people are they're very protective of their time. And so we want to make sure that it's easy for me to get around. We all accept traffic as a way of life. We need to make it easier to get around. And that doesn't mean just driving. It means providing good public transit options as well.
Yeah, thanks.
Councillor Ward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I did find it interesting, the number of work from home folks as that, you know, kind of stabilizes into something post-COVID and continues on. And I mean, it corresponds with data I've seen from City of Victoria where they have reduced numbers of people, you know, in the tens of thousands going into the downtown core. Though people, former commuters like myself that no longer go downtown and buy lunch there and, you know, even shop there. And I think increasingly, you know, I see that linkage with that desire from our residents to keep their money in the West Shore as well. If they want to pop out and grab food or, you know, other supplies, you know, it's something they're not ordering online, well, they'd like to do it either in Colwood or in Langford or nearby. So that is one area that I think, you know, as the mayor said, we've hit the nail on the head. I think in a lot of areas, healthcare and other areas that we're looking at, I think support for small local business is something that, you know, we've heard, you know, through this presentation, but certainly anecdotally through people in the community. There's a real desire to support local business, not chain business necessarily, not that there's anything wrong with those. And we know that there's costs associated with new development that dictate the type of tenant you can get. But I think as a council, we can take a long look and with staff, you know, review, okay, what can we do to support small business beyond just word of mouth support, but tangible financial benefits and ways to draw small business into the community, because it directly ties to where our people are and the patterns that clearly are exhibited here. So I did find that interesting. I think the other lesson I take from this is we should package it up and send it to the higher levels of government. You know, I think transportation is a big one that we can only do so much. I'm a big proponent for light rail. I know a lot of people view that as as maybe pie in the sky, but, having traveled a lot globally in my day job, I see smaller regions in Switzerland and elsewhere that utilize it for population bases less than what we see here, and it's highly effective. So I think there's opportunities though that require political will from agencies like the CRD, the provincial government, bipartisan. I'm not singling out any particular party here. And the feds as well, to put their money where their mouth is and try to mode shift people and create a vision for the future beyond just building an overpass or two here or there. So interesting, and I think it serves to reaffirm a lot of the things that we know. But like I said, there's a few pieces out of here that I think we can translate into tangible actions. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yeah, I have a few.
Please.
I was trying to understand the significance of that one slide you had on white and BIPOC. I didn't understand this.
Yeah, great question. So the point we're trying to make here is that there's a perception out there that Colwood is diverse. That's the perception. Residents are saying that 59% or whatever the number is off the top of my head are saying that it's diverse. But when you look at the census information, it's not diverse at all. And that's the point we're trying to make. The perception is that we live in a diverse area, but the reality is we don't. And so there's a massive disconnect in the perception of what people are looking, what they think they see versus what the reality is. And so how do we bridge that?
I see now. Okay, because I lied in the survey because I consider myself white. So
You're cracking gags?
I mean, I'm not. Well, my wife is white.
Fair enough.
So yeah, so the other question I had is did you hear much out there, on the prosperity side? Because I'm certainly listening to this almost on a daily basis now. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're an executive, senior executive of a company. A lot of people, there was this big purchasing of homes, 2018, 2019, 2020. A lot of people started, took 4 or 5 year mortgages, amortized, over 30 years or 25 years. And the worry, I mean, I've even heard this from a doctor who said they're really sweating the bullets trying to decide whether they're going to sell their home or not right now because they're up for mortgage renewal. And at the new mortgage rates, it's not quite double, but it's so significant that they're saying we can't afford our own home. So were you hearing that at all during your survey, or was that a question that was asked, or was anybody making that anecdotal remark?
Yeah, it's we're not an economist, so I can't answer that question. We certainly didn't ask about it. But I think to your point around the concern that people have in that particular space, it's real. But obviously when people applied for a mortgage in 18, 19, and 20, there was a stress test that everybody went under, right. and that's the law. But if I get approved that stress test number, but I make a little bit more than that, I've started spending that money, right? So I might have the money technically, but I've started spending it. And so now I've got to cut back on my spending in order to afford the new mortgage. So I think to your point, yeah, it's part of the conversation. We didn't ask about it specifically, but in other work that we do, we certainly hear about the challenges of that moving forward.
Okay. And the last question, and it's one of your slides you did cover in your presentation, which I was really shocked at actually, and maybe it's coming back to one of the things that I feel right now, that I was really surprised at the attendance at local events and festivals. It's just it's a really relatively low number, for the investment that we make in it. So sometimes I wonder, is this all local people, or is it exterior people that are coming? Because we get lots of attendance, but yet the numbers just don't pan out to me. So I just found that that was one of the biggest shockers to me, actually.
I think the number you're referring to, and my colleague can probably help me out here, but I think 2% of people said they go to these, or 20%, or there's something like, yeah.
Small.
Once it's very low, which suggests there's not a lot of local events going on a weekly basis. But to the point being that 20% go on an annual basis?
Right.
Not gonna be able to compete, but it is higher.
So we're not saying we're bringing Taylor Swift to town and everyone's going. What we're saying here is that there's a few like weekend markets and you don't get a lot of attendance from the local people, maybe, 10, 15, 20 points, but you do get a lot of traffic from people outside because as we established, 40% or 80% of the population are traveling outside of Colwood on a weekly basis. So if I'm living in a neighboring city, I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to come to the local markets and all those kinds of things. So I hear your point. I think that sense of community that the local events drive is really, really sound. People want that vibe. They want that sense of community. So I don't think, I can't speak for the return on investment, but what I can talk about is the perception of community and how people feel involved in that.
Okay, that's fair enough. That's a fair comment. So I guess the last question I have for you is that when you define prosperity, household prosperity, that was just, dollar for dollar. Is that how you define prosperity? I wanted to make sure I was clear.
Yeah, we actually didn't define household prosperity. We allowed people to define it for themselves.
Oh.
We didn't give them a dictionary definition of household prosperity as A plus B plus C. What we said is, what do you think of household prosperity? And we asked them some questions in that space because the definition of household prosperity for you might be different to me versus other people. So we want to give people the opportunity. There's no index here. What this is here's a range of different questions around the challenges of living here in Colwood from a prosperity perspective, be it transport, be it housing, be it education, be it employment, be it everything else. And what are the challenges and what are the good things about it that people in Colwood find?
That's great. And so the last question is for staff, actually. And particular Mr. Earl, I was wondering if I could ask, was the purpose of the survey just to confirm that our strategic priorities were correct then? Was one of the purposes behind this then? Was that just a confirmation of what we nailed on, what the issues were within the city?
Thank you, Your Worship. So as council recalls, we originally did some quantitative analysis from data sources such as the census, which gave us some beliefs about what might be going on in Colwood. The purpose of the survey was to check those beliefs. Those original census data is what we used to inform, amongst other things, our strategic plan. We will now take this data and apply it against our strategic plan. We will also take this data and circulate it to our various committees, asking them to provide feedback on how they might strategically advance the work of their committee against the backdrop of this work.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Councilor Ward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sorry, just a couple other things for me. I was interested in sort of the metrics around it. There are some anomalies, like the diversity one is a big one. I look at that and think, wow, you have to be pretty insular to suggest that Colwood is in any way diverse. I mean, I'm not as well traveled as some, but if you get to take a look around the community, like diversity is not the word that comes to mind here. So little surprising. And it leads me to wonder with responses like that, are they little red flags maybe to indicate that the subsection of people that have responded, are they truly representative of the overall population? Because I see other things in there, like the housing identified as a critical issue. Yet, if you looked at this in isolation, you would say the people of Colwood want action on housing. They want to see more housing, particularly of all types, housing for younger people, seniors. And yet every time a housing proposal comes forward, you'd think that we're destroying the character of the city if you consider approving it. So there really is a juxtaposition in perception and reality and what we're seeing from the survey and what we see, in the council chambers and in social media and things like that. So, I noted there's 497 respondents and there was a note there about adults. And I wonder, what's the breakdown of that? If they're all sort of stay-at-home workers, their worldview might be very different than a true, sort of high sample of youth, seniors, people with kind of different economic challenges. And I guess I'm just wondering about the quality of the data. And I don't mean that in an accusatory or negative way, but is that sample size, how would that compare to other communities, for example, say 20K population, 500 respondents? Do you see the same kind of numbers? Do you see this same sort of challenge in terms of results versus reality or?
That's a great question. Not the first time I've been asked this, so thank you very much for reminding me about that. Yeah, the reality of the situation is we live in a world where we don't do a census, and we can't because censuses are too expensive. Okay, there's one census every 5 to 10 years, and the Canadian government does it, and that's a challenge. So what we do is the next best thing is we reach out to a sample of the residents and we ask them their opinions. To get 500 out of 7,800 households, give or take, is a phenomenal effort. Much greater than previous work that was done, much greater than other self-responding type of activities that can be done. So from a sample size perspective, it's really solid. So to your point though about I guess the disconnect between perception and reality, I can't disagree with you. All that says to me is that I am projecting here. I live in a house and I have one neighbor. I've got 10 neighbors on my street, 9 of them look like me and 1 person doesn't. Therefore, I live in a diverse community. Okay? That is how people think. Whether we agree with that or not, that is the reality of it. So that is the disconnect between perception and reality. Now, if you'd said to me that 50-something% of the population think that Colwood is diverse, I would laugh at you. But that's the perception and that's the reality of people's lives today. I walk down the street and everyone looks like me, but there's another person who doesn't. It's inclusive. It's diverse. Good for me. Pat on the back, right? Massive disconnect, however. Okay. And I'm not, yeah, that's all I can really answer that with that particular question. It's a challenge, but that is the perception of things around that particular point.
Thanks very much. I'm sorry to chuckle. I'm not doing it in a malicious way, but I'm sure glad I'm helping my neighborhood out. Anyways, no, this is your sampling is pretty good because just from my undergrad stats course, you probably got less than 5% margin.
Yeah, exactly.
Greater than 95% actually level of confidence.
The holy grail of market research is 400. So right at 400 is plus or minus 5 points. So at 5%, we're looking about plus or minus 3 and change. Okay, so we're in a fantastic space. There's no issue to your, I mean, I hear you, but that's why we do sampling, right? So the margin of error is plus or minus, let's call it 4 points. So any number there is going to be plus or minus 4 percentage points. It doesn't change the story.
Right. Yeah, thank you very much. Great.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Really appreciate it. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to the next item, 8.2, the rescinding of sick leave and vacation carryover policies. Candace Perkins, Ms. Perkins.
Good evening. Excuse me. So council has been provided with a report with some background information. And I understand that 2 of the appendices referenced unfortunately didn't come through on the posted agenda. So with apologies, those will be provided for council's information tomorrow. But the 2 new administrative policies essentially maintain the core intent of the 2009 adopted council policies, which are included as Appendix 1 and 2. But they also include relevant entitlement updates and formalize some evolved administrative practices at the city. So for example, the new sick leave policy recognizes 5 days paid sick leave for auxiliary employees, as well as a longtime city practice of allowing some flexibility for employees to use a limited amount of their own sick time to care for a sick family member, immediate family member. So with the approval and implementation of these 2 new administrative policies, which support employee well-being and council's expectations for a positive, productive, and well-managed workplace, the recommendation is that council rescind the 2009 policies SIC 001 sick leave and VAC 001 vacation carryover. And I'm pleased to answer any questions if there are any.
Any questions, council? Pretty straightforward. Thank you very much. It was well staffed. Thank you very much, Candace. Seeing no questions, can I get a motion? Okay, Councillor Jensen, seconder Councillor Grove. Discussion? Seeing none, any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries unanimous. Thank you very much, Candace. And I forgot to mention this on that last presentation. There's an updated presentation that was submitted today that will be appended to the agenda tomorrow, just so that you have it all. There was a few slides there that we don't have in our package right now. Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll move on to the next item, which is 8.3, so carbon step code. Byron, over to you.
Good evening, council. We don't have a presentation prepared for tonight. It's pretty straightforward, based off of direction from council before. We have a bylaw tonight with a 2-month phase-in for zero carbon step code. Happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, pretty straightforward. Anyone, Councilor Jensen?
Yeah, thank you, your worship. I'm happy to move the recommendation as presented by Mr. Grant here. Thank you.
And Councilor Ward, seconds. Discussion. Like I said, it is straightforward. Thank you very much for all the hard work that went up into that to get it to that point. I was really, really impressed with that. Thank you. Seeing no discussion points, call the question. Are there any opposed to the motion? Seeing none, it's unanimous. Motion is carried. Holy mackerel. We're on to bylaws. Marcy, we get you to read the bylaws one at a time.
Thank you, your worship. So we have bylaw number 2016, building bylaw amendment, zero carbon step code, first, second, and third readings.
So, could I have mover and seconder? Okay, so Councilor Olson and Councilor Grove. Discussion? Seeing none. Any opposed? Seeing none, unanimous. Motion is carried. Next.
Bylaw number 2005, which is rezoning for 3494 Wishart Road, first and second readings only.
Okay, mover and seconder, please. Okay, Councilor Ward, Councilor Grove. Discussion? Seeing none. Call the question. Are there any opposed to the motion? Seeing none, it's unanimous. Motion is carried.
Bylaw 1700-10, which is the official community plan amendment, environmental development permit area, first and second readings only.
Okay, a motion. Okay, Councilor Jordison, Councilor Olson, seconds. Discussion? Seeing none. Any opposed? Seeing none, it's unanimous. Motion is carried. Next.
Thank you. Bylaw 1742-03, development permit delegation bylaw amendment, first and second readings only.
Okay, the motion, please. Okay, Councilor Jensen, Councilor Olson, seconds. Discussion? Seeing none. Are there any opposed to the motion? Seeing none, unanimous. Motion is carried. Next.
Thank you. Bylaw number 2003, Colwood Land Use Bylaw Amendment, CD 40, 2324 Souk Road, third reading.
Okay, motion, okay, Councilor Jordison, Councilor Olson, seconds. Discussion? Seeing none. Are there any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries unanimous.
Bylaw number 1977, Land Use Amendment, CD 38, 641 Latoria Road, for adoption.
Okay, motion, Councilor Jensen, Councilor Ward, seconds. Discussion? Seeing none. Any opposed to the motion? Seeing none, motion passes unanimous.
I believe this is the last one. Bylaw number 1999, sign amendment for CD 38 zone, and it's for adoption.
Okay, motion, Councilor Grove, Councilor Jordison, did I see you stick up your hand? Yes, okay. Any discussion? Seeing none. Any opposed to the motion? Seeing none, it's unanimous. Motion is carried. A motion for adjournment, please. Okay, Councilor Jensen and Councilor Olson. Discussion? Any opposed? Motion carries. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. This is the new record for us.